We're doing it. Hey, hey, boys and girls. Speed of Sound and Lawson talking about 12-step recovery programs. And if you haven't figured it out yet, I have no production values. This is just a crappy little channel where we kick some ideas around. And good. I did not shut my sound off. Anyway, so you reached out to me through Tom Jump and said that you 12-step programs you're not well. Go ahead. I'll let you
Yeah. My name's Lawson. I got sober about 5 years ago, and I did the whole AA thing. And it's not, I don't have a concrete position on it. The only thing concrete I know is the 12-step program wasn't for me. I can't get past the higher power concept, which we'll go into more. And I honestly believe that it would be better if people were referred to a different program, like through courts and stuff like that. So,
okay. And Smart Recovery is one such program, and I think that's completely secular, right? Smart Recovery.
Yeah.
I went to one meeting in Minneapolis. I think they only have two in Minneapolis, and I'll tell you, I was not impressed at all.
I wasn't either. So we agree on that. I thought it was.
I had 12 years sober, and even the moderator only had 1 day. So it was like, and going around the room, I don't think they amounted to a year's sobriety between about 10 people there. And I'm thinking, okay, well, how well does this thing work? And I wasn't, and then the whole booklet with cognitive behavioral therapy and all that. I'd done that in treatment, and it really is a wonderful program if you stick to it. But I mean, it takes quite a bit of discipline to do that kind of thing. I don't know.
Some people are just predisposed to not maybe think rationally or logically. I think I don't want to believe that. Like, I have beliefs that I don't want to have, but it's not like they haven't been shown. I haven't been given a reason to believe otherwise. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So Smart Recovery, not exactly taking hold. And I think and the thing, like, people have asked about, well, no AA meeting has a leader. I mean, they have the person that, runs the meeting, but he's a guy who always wants to hand it off to somebody else as soon as he can, he'll do it for a month or whatever. And there's no leader in that Smart Recovery. I didn't like the fact that they actually have a leader, and they're supposed to be trained in the program.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm kind of a tough old bastard from Minnesota, and I don't want no goddamn leader. If I want to go to a counselor, I will go to a counselor. But if I'm going to an AA meeting, there better not be any dude there that thinks he's going to tell me how to do shit. So I like that about AA. I started a secular AA meeting, I think about 2 years ago, and then COVID cut it short. We were just starting to get going. We had about 5 people, and we did it in an AA, in a regular L&O club with, and we we had a few religious people, but I mean, we made it very clear that it was a secular meeting and that we were talking about how atheism and agnosticism works in 12-step recovery. So that was the point. So my idea was that the problem with AA in the United States is that 70% of the people, or even 80% in the United States, claim to be Christians, right? So if you go to a meeting, you're overrun with people that are of that persuasion,
right?
And I didn't care for that. But in Minneapolis here, Liberal Lakes, as some people in the rural Minnesota call us, we don't have the religious aspect of AA is really not very thick at all. I mean, I've heard Jesus mentioned like twice at an AA meeting, and both times it made people extremely uncomfortable. So, but I can understand. Now, one of the things that I do is try to interpret the 12 steps in a secular manner. But anyway, you actually think it's bad for people. So why would that be?
I mean, I'm sure you've seen, like, I can't remember the studies' names, but there's some that evaluated the success rate of AA I
Yeah.
mean, and it's, you know, I don't fault AA for us not having a reliable way to treat addiction in general, because I
Right.
mean, we're just addressing addiction in the last 100 years, you know.
Right.
So and it's now, I think it's just almost not stigmatized at all now.
Yeah.
Except maybe in like TV and movies and shit. But yeah, just the higher power concept was what did it for me, because I had a conversation with a woman who I'd been going to meetings with for a while, and she said she was always trying to tell me, you know, you just need something more powerful than yourself. And my thought is, well, there's an infinite number of things more powerful than me, you know. And she said, like the ocean. And the ocean is more powerful than me, but I don't see how the ocean has any power to keep me sober. The only thing I see keeping me sober is my own choices, not just to drink or not, but choices of what kind of people to surround myself, what kind of environment I'm in. You know, those choices. If I had to put a percentage on it, I would say addiction is, gosh, like 90% choice, 10% disease / genetic disposition. I mean, I'm not going to die on that hill, but that's what I would guess.
Right. So 90% choice, 10% genetics, basically. Okay, that's one point. But the first point I wanted to address is that study that AA did. AA did a study, I think, back in, I don't know if it's the 70s or the 80s, where they measured the percentage of people that walked in the door first time and stayed sober, and they came up with something like 5%.
Mm-hmm.
And then they did follow-ups on them, and I think they went 2, 5, and I'm not sure if they went any further than 5 years or 10 years, but they found that 70% of the people that had walked in the door eventually walked back in the door after drinking. And so 70% of the people had achieved more than 1 year of sobriety at some point in their lives. So you look at that, and then the other studies that were done that found that AA was bad were meta studies. Some of them were extremely flawed. And another one was they would take people that were court ordered in AA, and they track them for 1 year, and they found a very like a 7% rate of recovery or something.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you did go to meetings for any amount of time, you would find that the people that were court ordered did not want to be there. In fact, we didn't want them there.
Mm-hmm. Right. I know what you mean.
Yeah, we don't want to sign your goddamn little card every week. And they were court ordered, had nothing to do with us. So they weren't really kind of committed to the program in the first place. They had no reason to be there and whatever. So I don't think any real study has ever been done on AA. And there was a paper recently, maybe about 5-6 years ago, that, did a pretty scathing review of this literature that says that AA isn't effective. And they indicated that it was probably impossible to measure the damn thing, kind of like herding cats. For one thing, having a person come in and keep track of us, I think a lot of groups would do it if they wanted to do it. But in order to do it, my life is like a checkerboard of sobriety periods and using periods. And I'm really old. I'm 69 years old. So I've been through some stuff. You're younger. When I was 24, I got into AA, and I was sober for about maybe a month after, during treatment, and got drunk about 2 weeks after. And then I was like intermittently sober until 1980. This is 1974. 1980, I was sober other than a few slips, probably until 1990. I drank once. In 94, I drank once for about 3 days. And then in 98 to 2000, I was drunk. I was using constantly. I got into meth and cocaine and alcohol. Then I sobered up for a year. Then I got really messed up from about 2001 until 2007. And now I've been sober. So now I've been sober for 14 years. So how do you measure the success of my life, right? Because I raised my kids sober, until they were like 13. They never saw me drunk. So how do you measure that success? It's hard.
That's what I was just thinking we should speak on. That's a good question, because everyone's success is going to be different. If you're homeless most of your life and drinking all the time, and then you go to AA, and then you maybe get into a crappy apartment and you're only drunk like a few times a year, for me, success is your life in a downward spiral or not, basically.
Right. Yeah.
And if it's not, then that's great. It depends on how ambitious a person is too. I mean, someone going to work at a fast food restaurant every day and just paying their bills and getting by, I mean, that's not ambitious, but there's nothing wrong with that at the same time.
Right. Yes.
So, I mean, everybody is different in that sense.
Yeah. Well, even when I was using, I mean, I was making a really high income until the very end, until I got so sick I couldn't work anymore. But I mean, I wasn't doing good work. That's for damn sure when I was using the last time. But, it was, as far as my life was spiraling downward, like really rapidly. I mean, like, particularly this last usage, I was heading towards suicide. I had no other options. I was getting so sick and I was so addicted that I thought the only choice for myself was death, and that's what I wanted to do. And then I went to an AA meeting, and I went to it to shut my sister up, and it ended up changing my life, for 14 years ago. And it was probably the first time that I ever actually worked the steps. I hate that fucking phrase. And it's also corny, but that was the only time I ever actually poured myself into the 12 steps and said, okay, I'm going to listen to these dumb son of a bitches, and I'm going to do whatever they tell me to do, no matter what it is, except for God. That was the one caveat, where I would not have. There's no way I'm ever, in all of my life, that I could ever be a believer. Never have been, never will be, that sort of thing. So, but everything else they told me to do, I did. And I went through the entire 12-step program, and I got a sponsor and went through the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th steps. And I had never done those before because I thought they were a pain in the ass to do, right? And I tried to apply myself and do them really well, basically get into this inventory. And the most amazing thing that happened to me, like I'd been to I don't know how many therapists in my life, but I suddenly could see my life, and I could see where I could see what I was doing that was wrong. And I could see where I was, exactly. And I could figure out exactly what I needed to work on to get on a right path. So in that respect, I really appreciated it. So do you agree that those parts of the steps may be valid? 4th, 5th?
Yeah. Inventory? I think, what is it? I have them right up here to read. Admitting you're powerless. Beautiful. Like admitting there's a problem. That's the first step in solving any problem. I mean, came to believe that the power greater than ourselves. I mean, if you want to call that power, that's greater power of community, perfect. I mean, because we're social creatures. We can't expect to operate by ourselves all the time.
My camera's weird.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why it does that. Okay, I'm back. So,
I mean, I agree with number 1 and number 2. Well, I think 2 can be interpreted different ways, but make a decision. Sorry, what's that?
When you get to 3, I got a feeling you're going to jump out of the room.
If you want to turn your will over to the advice of your peers, as I would say, I'm not going to say God, but if you want to take the advice of your peers, or maybe the psychology experts you're going to, or the addiction counselors, that's what you're there for, made a search. Talk about all the stuff you've done wrong, all your mistakes. Yeah, that's great too, because you need to forgive yourself for all that stuff and get forgiveness from people too. We had a big conversation about this guy, whether or not he should pay his drug dealer back that he owed money. And said, you probably don't worry about that right now.
Depends on whether or not he's going to kill you before you pay him,
And you might give it a year. This guy could go to prison, find God, and not even care about the money, Right. So admitted to ourselves, another human being, the nature of our wrongs. I don't really see a huge difference between that and the 4th step.
Yep.
What are your thoughts?
Well, that step 5 basically was going through the formality of saying it out loud to my sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
Or in the past, I'd actually picked a Catholic priest because I trusted them more. And it was
there's nothing they haven't heard either.
Oh my God, that guy says to me, this is really kind of funny. And it's kind of, I hope you don't mind swearing, but we swear a lot on this channel. But
I don't mind.
He takes me to this rectory, and it's this old Catholic priest. And I talked to him for a long time about religion. And I kind of got the idea that he didn't exactly believe in supernatural things. That he was sort of almost like a Buddhist or a secular. Anyway, so it comes time to do my 4th step, and I got all this horrible stuff written down. I felt that I abused this girlfriend, and with my trying to pressure her for sex, and I did this and I did that. And he says, okay, he said, I've heard everything. He says, you want to tell me you fuck dogs? He said, tell me you fuck dogs. And I'm like, I didn't fuck any dogs. It was clear that what I had to tell him was very boring compared to some of the shit he'd heard. And I thought, but when he said, when I heard that come out of a Catholic priest's mouth, particularly an old Catholic priest in full garb in his rectory, it's like, okay.
Maybe he's a member of the clergy project.
I don't know. Yeah, he might be. He used to speak at AA meetings, and he did this wonderful talk about spirituality, and he never mentioned God or anything like that. So the guy was cool. Yeah, he was an older dude. That's when I was like 24 years old. So anyway. Okay. So admitting it out loud to another person, to another human being, is cathartic, kind of, because it takes the sting out of it. And, the things that really, really bothered me, oddly enough, I mean, I had a lot of resentments and stuff that I had to sort out, but the things that bothered me were times that I'd gotten drunk and I did something really, really stupid and embarrassing, and I was so embarrassed about it that I couldn't even think about it without cringing. There were, like getting drunk and going out and trying to dance, with younger people and making a fool of yourself. And there was one story in particular, which it just made me cringe every time I thought of what I did. Right. I was so embarrassed for that guy, that drunken idiot that went out and did that I couldn't even talk about it. But when I told my sponsor, when I said it out loud, it took most of the bite out of it for me. So now I could just admit to it, and now I can kind of laugh about it, that's pretty fucking funny. You can't stand up and you think you're going to go dance like fucking John Travolta. It's not going to happen. So I mean, it's funny. And then it takes a sting out of it. So admitting it out loud, and as far as admitting it to God, to me, I've always interpreted that whole thing as basically getting to the core of your being, to the point where you embrace it emotionally, where I admitted it to myself. Because I think in a lot of ways I was hiding a lot of this stuff from myself. I was the one that was so, freaked out by it and would cringe every time I thought about it. I mean, I'd be driving down the road and I'd think about something I did and I'd be like, oh, fuck. I can't hear you. I don't want to hear it. Right. So this, I guess, admitting it to yourself, but admitting it to yourself at a core level. So I don't know what the hell they have that in that step for, but I would cut that part out. I'd say admitted to ourselves and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs, or admitted to ourselves and admitted to ourselves at a core emotional level and to another human being. That sort of thing. So
I agree.
If I were in charge of rewriting it, but we glossed over step 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. So when I was 24 years old, what's that?
You could just X that one out for me.
Oh, that's the most important part. This is the most important part of the whole goddamn recovery process. Now, when I was, my mom tried to.
Sorry. I apologize. I thought you read number 6.
Oh, no. Number 6.
Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
Number 6, I might agree with you on. Okay. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. So making that making that decision to, that was kind of me when I walked up those steps and I said, I'm going to do whatever these dumb bastards tell me to do. Even though I'm so much smarter than they are, I'm going to listen to them and I'm going to totally, devoutly follow everything they tell me to do. So that was part of it. But turning, okay, I want to, my mom tried to convert me to Christianity when I was like 8 years old. And I told her, no, Mom, this is bullshit. It's not for me. So I've always been an atheist. I became sort of a secular Buddhist at 16. And when I was 24 and I first went into the AA program, I got tossed into treatment by the state of Minnesota. Basically, they suggested you go to treatment or prison. Well, either one,
Yeah.
fork in the road. So I run into these 12 steps and I thought, holy shit, this sounds exactly like some of these paths that Buddhists take in order to change their lives and find enlightenment, that sort of thing. And turning your will over and basically giving up your will involves getting out of your rational mind, that sort of thing. Like, let's give you an example. Like if you're really angry at somebody and they did something real shitty to you, like your girlfriend did something real crappy to you. And then you go to your buddies and you explain what she did to you and they'll say, oh God, yeah, that's horrible. You really deserve to be pissed off at her and she's an asshole and all this stuff. And then everybody reinforces you and you keep thinking about this thing over and over again. And the more you think about it, the madder and the sicker you seem to get. So there's no resolution. And at some point you say, you know what? I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to give this up and quit thinking about it. I'm not going to sit here and cogitate anymore, not for another minute, about what this person did to me. I'm just going to let it go. And if you do that, and this relates to Buddhism too, it's a psychological trick. It's sort of shutting off the narratives that we play in our mind and giving it up. So giving your will over. And the other part of it will come up when we talk about the 11th step, and that is what it means to turn your will and your life over to the care of the universe. Mm-hmm. As the fucking thing is going to be, because you ain't going to change the universe. You ain't going to change life and death for yourself. So, and it requires a little bit of maturity, I think, to understand that. But anyway, okay. So where are we? So step 5. Okay, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of characters. So you think that one should be tossed?
I don't see how anybody's flaws, I guess, can just be removed by anything. I mean, okay. I don't even know if that's possible.
When I was a Rush Limbaugh addict back about 30 years ago, and I was a Republican, and immigrants have got to go, and I had all these ideas, right? Mm-hmm. I would listen to Rush and we'd all get mad at the liberals and they're ruining the country and all this bullshit and getting angry and stuff like that. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed being holier than thou, and I enjoyed being angry at people, and I enjoyed gossiping about people, that I didn't like, and all of that stuff. And these are defects that I didn't exactly want to go away because I enjoyed them too much. So there are some things that, and then there are other parts of it for me, like there were parts of that 4th step that I felt were my core being, being a radical, crazy asshole, swearing all the time, whatever, that I wanted to hang on to. And I had to be ready to give any of that up. And then I found out that, well, most of it I'm going to keep, because I put the seal of, this is okay. I can live with this. And, this is manageable. This is a part of who I am. And so it's kind of a process of it was a process almost like step 3 where I said, okay, I'll do it. If I have to do it, if, you got a gun to my head, I'll do it. No problem. So
an addiction can feel like a gun to your head. So
it does. Yeah. Yeah. And then, I don't know. So, but I'm talking too much. What do you think?
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. I can see how the relation, like I've heard the term, if I know that standing on my head for an hour a day is going to keep me sober, I'll do it. I mean, and if I know that for a fact, then I mean, yeah, it's worth the trade-off. If your life is in a downward spiral and you don't know what else to do. So,
well, GeoSam posted something here. Most of the studies found AA was significantly better, found to be 60% more effective. That must be a newer study. So maybe somebody did do a decent study. I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to spend, now that we've had an unseasonably warm winter, as you know, and I've been able to get a lot more work done this year. I should have quit roofing a month ago usually, but
yeah,
when it gets too cold, then I'm on my computer pretty much all day, and that's when I'm planning on doing a lot more research and stuff. And
yeah. The
I just wanted to add, I also recognize it's important for me not to go into this wanting to find a reason why AA doesn't work. I want to see what the evidence says,
yeah.
I want to believe that it is the best thing that we have. Because I mean, I want it to work for people. So I just wanted to get that out of the way.
My AA friends might shoot me for this, but I think we need something. We need some alternatives, and one of them is secular AA. We have to, like, for the 20% of us or 30% of us that are atheist or agnostic, this shit really is difficult for people, especially if you're just coming into it. And we need an alternative. The problem with AA is that it is so goddamn readily available. I mean, I can find a meeting anywhere in the world almost at 8:00. And I talked to somebody that went to a meeting, and what was it? I forget where it was. It was somewhere over in China. Found himself a meeting, and it was, and he had an amazing time doing it. He sat down with people from a whole other country. So anyway, it is so prolific. And so it's always available. I mean, like, my biggest problem with slips back in the day were when I went out of town on a contract out of town, I would usually have a glass of wine on the plane, and then I'd land and I'd get totally smashed and show up for my first day hungover. So what I did recently when I go out of town is I'll find an AA meeting first before I even get on the plane, and then agree to go to it that night. And I can find one in Columbus or Cincinnati or,
Have you ever been to a meeting at an airport? I did that a couple times.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
You can, what I was told you could do is, and I did this once, you can go, how you can have somebody paged at an airport, so-and-so meet at
really?
gate, whatever. If you go and you say, well, friends of Bill W. and Dr. Bob, please meet at this gate. And I did that once, and two guys showed up, and we talked, and I told them how it sucked that I flew Delta, because on Delta they offer you like something like 3 free drinks.
Right.
So
awesome. That's
but that was cool. So
that is a good trick. Anyway, so what the hell was I saying? Oh yeah, alternatives. The only way we're going to change this thing is from the inside, I think, and that is people like you and me starting secular meetings and reinterpreting these steps in different ways. And I think all 12 steps are keepers, but they certainly do need a little bit of reinterpretation if you were to read them in a secular manner. And AA has started approving agnostic meetings. They don't approve you if you change the steps.
Yeah.
But I think
fair, because then it's not AA.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, and it's and their idea is, if you can't stand a little God word, then okay, snowflake.
I can't really argue about that, but
Okay.
It's like one of those things. Is it more, would you rather be right and be miserable, or would you rather be happy and wrong?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that. But.
Yeah. Well, in Buddhism, it's pretty easy to replace the God word with life, the universe, and everything, or the number 42.
Pantheism, kind of.
Kind of, yeah. Sort of like just the way the universe is, and the way the universe. I mean, that's reality, right? The universe, one big ass cold place with a bunch of little dust spots with slime mold growing on it, and we're part of that. And if you can accept all of that, then you've accepted God in your life, sort of.
Perfectly fine-tuned design for us, man.
Yeah, right. Perfectly. Yeah. Slime mold. It's like, oh my God, this is the perfect little speck of dust I find myself on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay. So humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings as well. Now, God, I pray. I'm an atheist who prays. And I do it in a Buddhist fashion, and I do it with my body and my hands. Like, have you ever had the experience where you've gone out and had a really good time, and you met some people, and you just talk constantly, right? And then you get home and you're sitting in your chair and you're thinking, God, did I just talk about me the whole time, or did I say some stupid shit, or did I really say that? And you start to feel kind of edgy.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Okay. So that happens to me almost every time I go out, and because I'm real manic, and I really get out there and start talking. Like even in this conversation, I'll go sit down after it's over, and I'll think, oh shit, did I let the guy talk? Yeah,
I'm more of a listener anyway, so don't worry about it.
Anyway, so I had those moments, and I have this anxiety, or I'll sit down and I'll have some sort of real anger. I have like this horrible anger at somebody that did me wrong, that sort of thing. Or some worry about the future. Suddenly I find out this contract is not coming through. I'm financially insecure. I mean, I'm a contractor. I should be financially insecure, right? Yeah. I've never had a full-time job. So I'll do this. I'm going to let go. And I have to do it. The other thing is depression. I have to do it like 5 times. I'll say, I'm letting this go. I'm done. I'm letting it go. And after about 5 times, nothing will happen except the next day I'll start thinking, at what point did I start feeling better? I don't even know, because I truly let it go. And I started feeling better, and I never thought about it for the rest of the evening. So, and the more you practice that letting go, the better it is. So anyway, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. It's one of those psychological tricks you do in your mind that sort of reprogram you. In cognitive behavioral therapy, come on, the secular programs do the same thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, they have the same steps. So I don't know. So I'm defending AA, and
I'd like to segue into depression, if you don't mind, because I mean, obviously, sure. I'd say, I mean, I would imagine a good 70-80% of addiction is from depression or anxiety or something. Probably more, yeah. I guess I don't mind telling this story because I've told it so many people before, but I grew up Catholic, and I went to Sunday school, and my teacher was a deviant, to say the least. And I don't think I need to go into any more detail, but that happened to me when I was 11 and 12, and I just kind of blocked it. I never addressed it. And then teenager, got into drugs. And then I actually didn't start drinking until I was 23. I did not drink alcohol at all until 23, but I went to rehab in Washington for drugs when I lived there, and it didn't really work, but it like planted that seed in my head, Yeah. And then at 29, I went to St. John's in Fargo here for rehab, and it worked. And while I was in there, that's the first time I ever addressed the abuse I had as a kid to my counselor. And that was pretty much it. I think that was the kingpin of stuff that was causing me so many psychological problems. And it's true. The more people you tell about something, the better it gets. I mean, yeah. I find that to be true. And I remember in a meeting, I was listening to this guy talk. They had 3 speakers, and he was talking about how he just started drinking, and that was it. And they took questions, and I asked him, I was like, do you think that there was any underlying issue that you had or that happened to you that caused you to start drinking? Because I would say addiction's a symptom of mental illness rather than a disease in itself. And he just was like, well, I don't know. I just started drinking. And some guy interrupted him and said, I have an answer. It's because we're alcoholics, and that's it. And I'm like, well, that's not really good enough for me. I mean, So, and I should, one more thing. When I was in treatment, I was prescribed antidepressants, and those I've worked amazingly. I remember a year afterward, I stopped taking them because I thought, maybe I don't need antidepressants. Maybe I was just a drunk and had mental issues. So I stopped taking them, and they take about a month to get in and out of your system.
Right.
And after about a month, I started feeling shitty again for absolutely no reason. Nothing had changed other than I stopped taking my medication. So I knew that was good for me, because then I knew, okay, I do need this. So as much as I hate big pharma, they make a product that helps me get along. So I don't mind taking a pill every day if it makes a difference. So I'm wondering also how much a chemical imbalance in our brains has to do with this, and whether or not we can counsel our way into getting those chemicals back, or if it's purely physical, or you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. So do you mind me asking, are you taking Wellbutrin or bupropion?
Zoloft. Yeah. Zoloft. I don't mind.
Yeah.
You can ask me anything, by the way.
Zoloft made me absolutely batshit crazy. I don't know why.
I was lucky that the first one I tried worked for me. That's not the case with a lot of people.
I called my doctor and screamed at him while I was flushing him down the sink and saying, "You promised me you wouldn't give me anything that was going to make me," because I was sober at the time, right? I was going to meetings and stuff. And but Wellbutrin I found to be the most the lightest touch of all, as far as I don't know, but 14 years ago, I made a decision not to take any psychotropic drugs, and I was going to deal with my depression completely by myself. And I have been steadfast in that, except for the last month, something happened to me that was so bad, and I was so depressed, physically depressed, that I didn't think I was going to get out of it. And I really started thinking about going back on Wellbutrin, which would have, one time I was on Wellbutrin and lithium because I was having manic episodes at the same time, that sort of shit.
Sure.
But that has plagued my entire life. Like when I was a teenager, I was in counseling for, had hallucinations, and I was just bipolar as hell. I mean, I was seeing shit, and it was just crazy, but I made it through this, I think, and I don't think I'm going to go back on Wellbutrin because I don't like the kind of fuzzy feeling that drugs give me. And so I kind of want to avoid it. But then, now the interesting thing is that depression depression is a real physical metabolic condition. Okay, it affects both your body and your brain, and that's why you get tired and you're sleepy and you're not eating right. So I mean, it affects your entire nervous system, and it affects every gland in your body. It affects everything, and when that happens, there's something really, really devious that you can do. And that is to sit there and take out a little placard and write, "I am depressed" on it. And right below that, "Life really fucking sucks," and right below that, "I want to end it." Right. So you start this narrative in your brain. And that's the same thing as step 3, giving up this narrative, giving up this, stop talking to yourself. Stop telling yourself stories, like I'm depressed. So I said, okay, I'm going to let this go. And I let it go. And my depression prior to this event that happened to me would last for only 1 day or 2 days out of, and I used to have like 1 month bout, or probably a 2-week bout with depression and then 2 weeks of manic. And I got it down to, where it was only happening a couple of days a week or a month. And I could deal with it. I went to sleep. I ate ice cream, ordered Cheesecake Factory, just, and let it go. And I didn't write that narrative. And I found that to really work well, but still I would find myself sitting in my chair in front of Netflix saying, "Oh, I'm so depressed," and then I remember this whole program that I've developed in my head, and I'd say, "Okay, I'm gonna let this go." So I'm not gonna write that narrative. And because the narrative of depression can cause more depression. And that's something that I wish the fuck I heard a counselor say out loud, because they can tell you how to develop skills to deal with depression. Because the fact about depression is that few people know is human beings need it. everybody experiences it to some degree. Not everybody goes way down in the valley like, some do, right? But I mean, you feel it. When you go way down in that valley, you can run your rational brain to a point where you can keep yourself in the valley longer than you got to be there, longer than you need that break, that sort of thing. So anyway, it's my spiel on depression. I haven't published any paper. I don't know shit. This is all anecdotes.
That's all right.
But it works for me, So
yeah.
For me, so.
I read. I know I'll probably keep bringing out studies that I've read that I can't remember the names of, but I read a thing that this guy talked about how depression's new and as far as like humanity goes, because for the first time in human history, we don't have to worry about like going out and like hunting for our dinner, and life is so easy that we're able to just be depressed, basically.
We have time to be depressed.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why I think psychotropic drugs have really taken off,
Yeah. And I had this idea, like we used to go camping with, when my kids were little. And my wife and I'd go out and we'd spend 3 days doing nothing but chopping wood, feeding those little bastards, taking care of them, following them around, taking them swimming, building tents for them. So for 3 days, we'd be out there just absolutely busy 24/7. And then we'd get home and we think, God, that was fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what the fuck is wrong with it? It's like, that's all we did is work 5 times harder than we, would have worked at home. And it's kind of like if we lived in the way that we were sort of biologically brought up to live, we'd never get time to whine about, our depression or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. And yet there are people that are so physically stricken with some sort of epigenetic modification that leaves them depressed for long periods of time. They absolutely have to have medication, but shit, our medication is so brute force now. We know so little about it. There's an area where I'm hoping they will get a hell of a lot better. I found one thing, grandma meth really cured my depression. Temporarily.
That's the one substance I never really tried or got into. Well, I never tried it on purpose, I should say. But but I know a lot of people who've struggled with that. It's crazy how that has reached every corner of everywhere. Like there's no small towns anymore. Like I remember visiting Fargo and the area because I have a lot of cousins here, and they called pot dope and stuff, and they didn't. And then I come back 10 years later, and there's a meth lab somewhere in their town. It's like, oh yeah.
Ginger Nation. Okay, Ginger Nation is an addict. He said he's been going to Smart Recovery for 3 years and it's working for him. I would love to talk to him about that.
Mm-hmm.
I met one other person. He's on the Atheist forums, on Facebook.
Okay.
I forgot what his name is. Damn it. Well, I mentioned him quite a bit in that AA debate I did with
Jenna.
Jenna, with Jenna. I really like her. I met her down in Austin.
Yeah, she's pretty cool.
Yeah, but anyway, he was really into Smart Recovery, and he was really promoting it. So at his prompting, I went to a meeting over there, and I never went back because it just didn't seem like it had the direction I needed.
Yeah, I understand.
Because I wouldn't mind taking more than one tack to make sure that I never go down the rabbit hole again, down the tubes again, because if I do, I'm so fucked.
I would say like a big part of it is who else is at the meeting. I mean, because there can be one asshole there that can kind of turn you off of it, which isn't really rational, but that's just kind of how our brains work sometimes. I
had my home group that I went to for, 8 or 9 years. And there was one person or two people that came in, and then some other hangers on that were extremely religious. And it just started to turn there were 3 of us atheists there. And it just started to change the core of the meeting to the point where it was a little bit difficult. And that's when I went off and started that agnostic meeting. So
Do you ever, I've had this thought so many times in meetings where the three people before me that share are like, thank you, God. And they go into the whole God thing and Jesus thing. And part of me just wants to be like, for me, Satan really keeps me sober. And thank you. Just like, I want to be a dick like that, but I hate to do that because it's obvious that I'm just doing that to be antagonistic, but I'm just trying to make the point that it's just, I don't know. You know what I mean?
What I do frequently in those meetings, and I've done it in my meeting, I don't like when people bring up and say, "Oh, I'm a Christian and I believe Jesus is my savior," right?
Mm-hmm.
But I will start talking to them about spirituality and praying and all of that stuff, and then right smack in the middle, will say, "And I'm a card-carrying atheist, card-carrying American atheist," and they're like, okay, what's happening? And they will come up to me and talk to me. And I've had people approach me and say, wow, I'm having trouble with this God thing too. And so if they do that, then you tell them that you're a card carrying American atheist. And if they give you any pushback, find yourself a different meeting or a different group. Sure. So they mentioned Jesus a lot in Fargo. Like I say, I've only heard it a couple times here.
I was just going to ask you, how do they close the meeting where you go to? Or
Lord's Prayer. But we voted it out of our meeting.
That's awesome.
No, one meeting, but we voted how it works out of this home group I had, and we voted on the Lord's Prayer. And I decided, well, it is kind of a you get up and hold hands, not anymore, but we used and it was sort of a way to seal it. And there's one line in the Lord's Prayer I like, but the rest of it is like bullshit. But it was sort of like, if I'm not big enough to accept other people's, what works for them, then maybe I ought to reconsider me. I mean, if I'm not, if I can't do the ritual that they love, like I had this friend, Jen, she passed away recently from emphysema, because she wouldn't fucking quit smoking. She was the stubbornest son of a bitch I ever met. But she was wonderful. She would sit there and just grimace the whole time. She wouldn't say a word because she was one of the ones that voted to get rid of it. Mm-hmm. But we got outvoted basically by the Christians. Yeah. So in my secular meeting, we closed with a little acceptance paragraph that had God in it one time, and I changed the word God to the universe or to they, something else. And we close with that. We never do the Lord's Prayer. So, I mean, that's something you can, every meeting is, you can make your own decision. So if you have a group of like-minded people, the problem is that it's hard to, like my agnostic meeting really wasn't taken off very fast because I couldn't find enough atheists. And what the fuck? It's this
herding cats, just like you said.
What's that?
I said, just like you said, it's like herding cats.
It's like herding cats, yeah. So I don't know. I really think we need more agnostic meetings. And now that we've gone over to Zoom meetings, like all meetings are on Zoom, I can connect with a lot more people. And I think we can put together some really good meetings. And I'm really interested in doing that because I did get a little turned off in the last year or so that I went to my home group because it started to take a religious slant. So I don't know. What I found about people that are like, we had these two ladies come in and they were just they just sobered up like the day before and they were absolutely gung-ho about AA. And they would talk about God and God and God. And then the next week they came back and they said, yeah, and we're going to 3 meetings a week and we're going to 2 Bible studies. And the next week they were going to 2 Bible studies in a church. And 4 weeks later, we never saw them again.
Yeah.
They right off the deep end.
Yeah.
I've seen that over and over.
Me too.
People that start to go to Bible study, and get really far into the religion, AA doesn't fucking work for them.
Yeah.
Because AA is a Buddhist program, and it's not going to work for a Christian program. That's my feeling on it. That's my.
Yeah, I see.
Just, anyway, okay. So we got some more steps we could take a look at. Let's see. Okay, Ginger Nation had another comment. He's a pretty cool guy. The meeting I go to, we're all really close. My sponsor goes with me. It's online. None of us talk about God. Are you going to, is that an AA meeting or is that the Smart Recovery meetings? So I don't know. I have a agnostic sponsor, and I'm not sure if he was an agnostic when I met him, but he is now. And he commented that there was a meeting last night where there were basically two agnostics and a bunch of people talking about spirituality. And I wish I'd been there. I wish I'd gone to the meeting last night, but I didn't. I went to the one on Tuesday. It becomes, I don't know. I think we get into far better topics when we interpret God in more of a psychological way. And we look into what really happens when you turn your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand them. Like the actual thing I think that happens is that chatterbox part of your brain shuts up and your body and mind, your body and core take over. And when you live that way, like if you go out and you do a sport or you do some hard work or you chop wood or something like that, and you come in and you feel really good, because you weren't out there thinking about solving the problems of the universe or bitching about, the state of the nation or any of that. You were just feeling your body and you were alive. You were breathing, you were seeing, you were feeling the air, you were feeling your muscles. And it seems like that makes you extremely healthy when we do that. So I think a lot of this is a psychological trick. So anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Humbly asked him. Okay. We're back to, now step 8 and 9 were really important because when I did step 8, made a list of all persons I'd harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Most of the people I needed to make amends to were dead, unfortunately. But what I found in all of the problems and all of my resentments, it's like I'd get drunk, I'd go out and I'd try to convince somebody that they should like me. And if they didn't like me, I would fuck with their minds and they'd end up trying to kill me. And, it's just like and then I'd have a resentment against them because they didn't like me.
Sure.
And so it was all about me. And it was about my low self-esteem. And I realized that my low self-esteem entered into every part of my life. And I grew up in the 50s and 60s, and my uncles used to come around and give me moral lessons, pay your bills, be a good person, share your candy bar, that sort of thing. And I grew up with this strong sense of morality, where I hated the idea of anybody that ran out on their wives. I absolutely fucking hated them. Yet I would get drunk, and the first thing I do is go to the bar and try to pick somebody up. So I was doing exactly, and when it come to paying my bills, I just absolutely hated losers who didn't pay their bills or didn't have a job. And here I was unemployed, not paying my bills.
Yeah.
So I realized that I was the asshole that I hated the most. And the way I judged, I had become the person that I absolutely disliked and that I judged myself, right? And I realized that I had these two buckets. I had this my actions, and I had what I wanted for myself or what I thought of myself, right? I'm this moral, bastion, and yet I'm doing all this shit that I hate. And when I put those two things together with the 8th step and 9th step, my life just completely turned over into a different kind of life. And I was amazed by that process. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, and then I went out and made amends to a bunch of people, and I repaired a whole lot of relationships. The only ones that went badly are with my kids. They wrote me a new 4-step inventory while I was doing my 9th step with them. They had some complaints, basically, because from the time they were, I think, 16, 17, and 18, and then again in their early 20s, they saw their dad turn into a piece of shit. So I'm trying.
Yeah, I don't have kids, so I mean, I can't.
Yeah.
I understand. I could give the perspective of a son, but not of a father. So I mean, that's a whole nother ball game that I can't even, when people in the meetings I went to, when they would share about their kids, I would always say, well, I've forgiven my parents for things, and you probably have too. So if you just keep looking at it,
Yeah. Well, I have a really close relationship with all three of them, but they still have resentments. I think that that we probably need to deal. I mean, for the first 13 years of their life, they had heard about alcoholism and addiction, and then on their around when they were 13, I give them a live demo for one night where I got drunk, and then I give them another really bad live demo when they were 16 or 17 for a couple of years, and that really hurt them. And my son wrote me a letter in treatment, and he told me, and I cried, and he said, here's a man who I absolutely worshipped and looked up to and thought was the paragon of of being a man, and I watched him turn into a sniveling, drunken piece of shit in front of me with dancing around with a gun in his mouth, basically, which I thought was a funny joke while I was drunk. And he just let me have it. And it was like, holy fuck. I just broke this kid's heart. I took this, that was where they took their father off the pedestal, and they realized, and what I'm hoping that they come to terms with is that they understand the humanity of parents. We are fucking human, and we are not, gods, that sort of thing. But I mean, it was a fall for him, and it was unbelievable. And that was like the most emotional thing I have ever listened to. And I thought, holy fuck, what have I done to you, Destin? And it was, and then the other twin, read his, and, roughly the same dressing. And it was a tough time. That was in 2000. I went back out and used for 6 years after that.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, fuck, no amount of shame stopped me from using when I was in the using mode. I'm pretty bad. Now here's the cool one. So, okay, we'll just round these up. Continue to take a personal inventory. When we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Now, that's kind of glossed over in AA. That's like, when you fuck up, admit it. Like if you said something to somebody and you feel bad about it, call them up and make an apology. And when you make an apology, do not utter the word "but." I'm really sorry I did that, but
right.
Anyway, so just make a naked apology and promise that you will do better next time. And believe that. And so that, but in Buddhism, the 10th step is about developing this self-awareness of how I feel. Like if I'm angry, a little self-aware module up here will say, hey dude, what's up? Think about this. Consider the fact that you're an alcoholic and a drug addict, and this anger may not be good for you. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of keeps an eye on you. So it's called the inner theater in some secular Buddhist methodologies. So you develop this self-awareness where, like, once a day you just sit down and say, how the fuck am I doing? How do I feel? What's bugging me? What's up? And 11 is kind of like that, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him. Praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. Now, I hear Christians in meetings praying for so-and-so's cancer to be healed, and praying for, I prayed so that my life would get better. No, that isn't what this fucking thing says. It says his will for us, the universe's will for you. And what that's about is acceptance. That's about whatever bad shit happens to you in your life. And I've had some bad shit happen to me in my life. I have to accept that I have to accept it. I can't buck it. I can't change it. I can't go back and change any of that. I have to accept what happened. So it's this total feeling of acceptance. And And I tell a story in meetings where I woke up and I always wake up every day and I'm like full of energy and I want to sit down and study genetics and biology. And I get up and I make this really thick cup of coffee, I use a cup and a half of fine ground, like super ground coffee beans in about 2 cups of water. So, I mean, this is some thick shit, right? Then I put cream in it, which makes it even thicker. And I get it all ready in this 20-ounce cup.
Coffee paste.
And then I go to grab it. And this one time or a couple times, oh shit, I knock it over. And this one time I knocked it over and I have white walls and it was everywhere. I mean, it was like a fucking coffee dripping dungeon, right? And I sat there and I felt this like flash of poor me, depressed, fuck this, I'm pissed off. And I said, wait a minute, new plan. Okay. This is a new plan for the universe that I can do nothing about. So I went and I expended $1.50 on one big roll of Bounty towels. And I just cleaned everything up, made myself another cup of coffee and went to work. So that's acceptance, right? And that's what we run into. Last one is, go ahead.
I was going to say, so the moment I think that the main group I went to kind of realized that I don't want to pretend to know what they were thinking, but I'm sure some of them were thinking this. The moment that I was kind of labeled as problematic in the meeting was when I was talking about my disbelief in a God, and someone said, well, if, you kind of the most militant Christian there basically said, if you don't accept a higher power like God or something, you're never going to make it. And man, I was waiting for someone to say that for like months.
Yep.
I said, okay, so in your like theology, God, I'm just going to try my best here, put my Catholic hat back on. God is all knowing, omnibenevolent, has a mysterious, all loving, and has a divine plan that's kind of beyond our understanding. And he's like, yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. That's exactly right. I said, okay, well, that means that it might not be in God's plan for you to be sober. And he just kind of like looked at the ground for a second. He said, no, I know God's plan is for me to be sober. And I said, well, then you just contradicted yourself. Like, and Christians aren't interested in hearing that something's a contradiction, but, and he basically just said, well, you're hopeless and blah, blah. And I was like, I can't buy into it, because it might not be a plan for you to be sober. You don't know.
Yeah, they're so dogmatic and they're so judging. Like I've heard that a couple times that you won't be sober unless you find God. In fact, that goddamn chapter to the agnostic in the big book, which is the one that I would rip out.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's just like, oh, you atheists, just hang around. You'll get it. You'll become believers, and it's like
just make it till you make it.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, that's not really helpful to people like me, who absolutely are not going to cross that bridge, I don't know. Yeah, but that's what I mean. It isn't AA that's the problem, because this thing was written basically back in the 30s, and they were fighting with Native Americans in Minneapolis. And that's why we have the God as we understand him in there.
Oh, yeah. I did watch. I've watched a few documentaries on Bill W. and Dr. Bob. None of them talk about LSD, by the way. The ones
I know.
But that if you bring that up in a meeting, it's like no one even acknowledges it. And I think a lot of people know that there's plenty of documentation that that's what happened. But
Bill took LSD.
Yeah. But,
and I'm planning on sometime in my later life getting back into mushrooms and trying them out. And because I don't consider them drugs, I've never abused them. So my sponsor's probably going to watch this. I mean, he's going to kick my ass. But I'm planning. When I get at the point where I'm looking at a terminal disease, I'm going to basically check out on the mushroom path, and I'm going to try a little tiny bit of it to make sure I'm physiologically capable of it. But
sure.
Anyway, Bill Wilson had the same, because Bill Wilson was searching for Buddhism, and he was searching to make sense of his spiritual experience, because Bill Wilson, I think, at the core was an atheist. I don't think he was ever a believer.
I
But
think
yet he
so.
had the experience, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a whole page of quotes and stuff and like observations of him, and I think the same thing.
Yeah.
I want to kind of put that into a little video one day, but I have a few questions. Do you think someone who is getting clean from heroin and they get Suboxone or methadone, are they clean?
I think so. Yeah, as long as there's this thing, there's this attitude that you get in your mind where you know you're going to be sober. Like I was leaf blowing a couple years ago, and I fell backwards. I tripped over a fucking ninja fire hydrant that was about that high. It tried to kill me, and I landed full force, my entire weight on my elbow, right? And then I kept leaf blowing because it's like, oh shit, it didn't break. And then all of a sudden it started hurting, and I felt it. And it was kind of wet, and I had this bulge of blood vessel, like a blood hematoma. And I was in such pain that I knew I needed a drug. And so I went to the emergency room, and they wanted to give me 16 oxys.
Mm-hmm.
And I told them, no, give me 8. Oh, I need 8 because I was like, okay, I'm going to take, one now, and as I needed it. And I knew when I needed a pain pill, and I knew that I was sober the whole time I was taking it. So these guys, that are recovering from heroin, they can't go cold turkey.
Right.
And they should taper off. And if they can live that way, it becomes a medication. I don't know. I think they could be fine and lead a life of sobriety.
Mm-hmm.
Though I'm for myself, I won't take any psychotropic drug at all. Nothing.
Yeah.
That's just me. There are people that fucking need antidepressants and need medication.
Sure.
Who am I to decide?
That's good. That because that brings me to my next point is if it's a prescription drug, that's kind of a good metric to have. Like if it's prescribed to you, I mean, obviously there's people that are prescribed things that don't need it, but
right.
If at some point psilocybin is something prescribable, then I mean, right. I don't see how AA could really argue that it's using again or relapsing. Yeah,
the same thing with marijuana. I don't like up on I come from the Iron Range from St. Louis County, that mining area in Minnesota. And there are a lot of people up there who smoke dope every day, and they're fucked up. You can tell that the dope is fucking them up.
Yeah,
it seems to drain their ambition. But on the other hand, I know people like myself who have smoked marijuana recreationally back in the 60s, back when pot was still good. I think I tried it when I was like 37, and I thought, this shit sucks. This is nothing like what we had in the 60s. Though the popular concept is that it's better now. I think you're full of shit. Anyway, so there are people that can use it for pain as a medicine, and they don't use it to the point that a pot addict does.
Right.
My brother is a pot addict. He got addicted to it. I didn't, so I don't know.
You can get addicted to anything. I've tried telling people this, like, I'm in construction, so everyone but me smokes pot. And I tell my guys that show up for work, I was like, dude, I don't care what you do in your free time. I don't even care if you smoke before you come to work. But if I think that it's affecting your performance, I mean, I'm going to say something. Like,
yeah.
But I grew up in Seattle. Out there, people look at you with the stink eye if you're smoking a cigarette rather than smoking a joint. Like, it's not even a thing there. I mean, you go at the store, you can go buy it at the store, just like Colorado. I mean, it was different. So when I moved here, I was still using and drinking. I remember thinking how awesome it was that the liquor was so cheap in Fargo when I moved here, because it's like a third of the price that it is in Seattle.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I moved here and I called my cousin. I was like, hey, can you get me a bag of weed? He's like, yeah, meet me at this parking lot and come alone. And I'm like, why are you acting so weird? And then I remembered, oh, it's like a crime here. I forgot. Like,
right. North Dakota, they used, like, back in the 60s, if you got caught with pot possession, 99 years hard labor.
Yeah. It's
what the fuck.
Not that now, but it's still like you get caught with a an ounce, they're like, "Oh, we caught the kingpin drug lord of New York."
Yeah,
North
exactly.
Dakota, and you're going to prison. Like,
Yeah, it's pretty.
but I think a lot of the cops have wised up, and they're like, it's going. Things are moving in the right direction. I think Texas is going to legalize it in the next 10 years. I think, especially since Joe Rogan moved there.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. Well, Austin, Texas is like a liberal island, and hopefully it'll grow and spread. The liberal disease will spread it into all of Texas. We'll see.
Yeah.
But Ginger Nation said, I feel like people hear that you need a higher power and assume only God can fill that role. Yeah, I guess if you don't understand the psychology of this appeal to a higher power, we're finite beings. We're going to die. Bad shit is going to happen to us. If we got this idea that, bad shit isn't going to happen to us and we can't accept bad shit, it's going to make us sicker than we need to be. We're going to suffer more than we need to. And higher power being just acceptance of the universe unfolding as it should, and that includes life and death, will give you great strength, and it's like you're on a stormy sea and you're in this little boat. Well, you could try to go through the fucking wave, or you can go with the storm. You can just go up and down. If you don't go up and down, you don't have that acceptance, there's going to be hell to pay. So I don't know, it's that simple. So and they'll say psilocybin, in my opinion, and if used correctly, LSD is not drugs. I don't see psychedelics as abusable drugs. I never knew. One of my friends, and I had some pretty fucked up friends on the Iron Range. Most of them died of drugs or alcohol. None of them ever abused LSD. They would take it, we used to take it like, I don't know, twice a week back in the 60s for a while. I did it about 100, 200 times. And I can't, but it wasn't something that I had this burning need to get, like with meth.
Right.
With meth, I would have sold my wife and kids, and it's like, fuck, I don't really need them. Yeah. My
cousin, he microdoses a lot, and he has a drinking problem like me. And as far as I know, it's helped him relatively be manageable. I think he still drinks beer and stuff every now and then, but like I said, his life's not in a downward spiral.
Yeah.
I've asked myself many times if I could ever go back to being a social drinker. Go back. I was never a social drinker, but if I could be a social drinker, and I think I could, but also it's not worth the risk to me. So I've just accepted the fact that I can never drink again, and I'm okay with that. I don't
want that feeling.
Yeah.
That drunk feeling. It never, like, being just mildly buzzed never appealed to me. For me, it was always, I had to just keep going until I was chasing some sort of high. Like the first few beers I had, I always described it as feeling like a train was coming. I'd get real agitated, for the first couple of beers, and I wouldn't calm down until about the fourth or fifth. And then I can't remember the rest of the night. So, right. It's like, or, sometimes I once had a 2-week blackout. That was fucking epic. That was an amazing story. I have like maybe 2 memories where I kind of like somehow I remember waking up in a car at work, and I remember having a girlfriend, and I don't know where the hell she came from, and I was married, and it's like, okay, so now I have a girlfriend, but I can't remember where the hell she came from. It's like, oh fuck.
I was gonna tell a story on the psilocybin thing. There was a good few months when I was 17, 18, and a bunch of closed cap Kabenzi mushrooms were around my group of friends, and we had them. And I remember I ate them probably every other day for a couple months, and I just played video games and did stupid shit. And I don't want to say it's hard to explain to anybody who hasn't taken them, but it made me think that, like, I think literally anything can be addictive, not the substance, but just you want that feeling again. Like, like if you want to define addiction as an activity or substance that you're doing that has negative consequences when done in excess, you could say horseback riding's addictive because it causes back problems, knee whatever. Like, so I always go back to the whole, like, kind of everything in moderation, is always a good standard to have. So,
yeah. The problem with mushrooms and LSD is they have like a 4 or 5 day tolerance period.
Yeah, you got to take a lot more the third.
Yeah.
If you want to get.
And then you're oftentimes like a good 12-hour LSD trip will burn you out to the point where you need 3 fucking days to, come down and recover. And I don't know. Meth is the same way. You build tolerance to it. So when I take meth, we had those 5 milligram methamphetamine hydrochloride pharmaceutical methadone that we used to take in the 60s. They were called White Cross, and they were just little tiny pills. So I take 4 of those the first time, and you get higher than hell. That's 20 milligrams. And then the next time I had this formula times 2 plus 2. So the next time I take 10. The next time I take, I don't know, 22, and I kept going up, and I'd be like dropping 100 at a time.
Yeah. To
stay high for like fucking 8 days. Cause there's something, you're fucked when you're doing that. I mean, there's something really wrong. Whereas with LSD, I had no problem taking it and waiting for a week, to do it again, even when we were really enjoying ourselves back in the 60s or 70s. But, I don't know. It's just a different kind of profile.
Mm-hmm.
And alcohol, you don't build any tolerance to that shit. It just keeps going. You do it to a little bit over years, but
yeah, over years, definitely. My rock bottom was when I went to the hospital. I don't remember for what. Oh, I was suicidal, and
yeah.
I remember when the paramedics came to my apartment, and I remember thinking in my head, if you don't tell them what they want to hear right now, nothing's going to stop. So I just blurted out the words, "I'm a danger to myself." And then once you say that in front of paramedics, you don't have a choice anymore.
You gotta haul in, yeah.
I just like, if I don't say this, then everything's going to keep going. So I'm glad I did. And I remember, I totally lost my train of thought. My blood alcohol was it was 0.47. That's what it was.
Yeah. Holy shit.
And they said it was the highest they'd ever seen of somebody who was conscious and alert, because I was drinking, they call them handles here. I was drinking a handle like almost every day throughout the day. I never got so drunk that where I would just kill a whole bottle in like an hour and then pass out. I always maintained,
right.
Like I may as well have walked around with an IV drip of rum.
Yeah.
That was my life for years. And yeah, I developed a pretty big tolerance to it.
Yeah, I blew a 4.2 once, but never a 4.7. That would be, and the doctor asked me. The doctor thought there was something wrong with his breathalyzer because he's like, "You're talking to me. You're
Yeah.
In fact, I talked my way out of the emergency room, and they let me go. And I drank like 36 Heinekens that afternoon. I was so funny. I ran over a phone booth, and all these cop cars from rural Minnesota, the sheriff's department, there were like 6 cop cars around me. My girlfriend, I called her, and I was like real suicidal. I had a 30-30 in my trunk.
Yeah.
And she was suicidal. So I called her, and that little devil called the cops on her cell phone. And they found me, and I was sitting there with this big pole bent over by this phone booth because I smashed into it. And I had Heinekens in the car, and I have all these cop cars around me. And I walked out, and I leaned against the hood of my car, and I said, "Am I in some legal trouble, officer?" They said, No, we're just worried about you. Your girlfriend said you were, in trouble. We got an ambulance, nice little ambulance over here. We're going to take you to the hospital. So I go to the hospital. I silver-tongued my way out of it. Oh, I was just having a fight with my girlfriend, and I told her I was going to kill myself to impress her. And, I'm fine. He lets me go. And it's like, and the cops left my Heineken in the car.
That sounds like a dereliction of duty.
Went home. Fuck. I couldn't get arrested for a DWI no matter what I did. I had one in 1974. And I should have been arrested so many times. Yeah. But I would miraculously get out of it. It's like, I couldn't believe it.
I think people like us, our habits can get even worse because they're not as noticeable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I see sometimes I still go out with my friends. Well, not after COVID, but I would still go out with my friends for an hour or so. And then once they start drinking more, I'd call it a night. But I see the way some of them behave, and I'm just like, I was never like that, even at my drunkest. Like, so I don't know. It kind of it makes me just see how people are different, the way they react to things.
Yeah. I become self-destructive. I'd never become angry or an asshole, but I would become so self-destructive. I would do crazy shit like, dancing on the edge of a building or doing, things that should have got me killed. And I really hurt those around me because they were so afraid I was going to kill myself. And like when I was 24, they actually planned my funeral because they were so sure I was going to die within, several weeks. And here I am, 69 years old. I'm still kicking, and most of them are dead. Pretty bizarre. Ginger Nation makes using LSD as a tool to open your mind and not abusing it, because it is not something to fuck around with. And nobody should do LSD unless they know a great deal about it or talk to people who have taken it, or mushrooms. Mm-hmm. Because some people can get thoroughly fucked up on it if it sneaks up on them, because it is going to change the very paradigm of reality for you in about 1 hour. And some people, so it's not something, this channel does not condone LSD.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, I agree. This is just a little thought I have, but would you say that alcohol can be a tool for, say, writers or philosophers?
I guess if you're not an alcoholic, if you don't have that, I've got something in me physiologically that I know reacts to alcohol in a bad way. And if you are truly a non-alcoholic, which is probably 90% of us, can handle it, maybe 95. Actually, it's nutritious. Beer is nutritious. And I understand, if you take like a glass of wine a day, it can actually counterindicate heart problems. So no problem with that. But if you're an alcoholic, you better fucking face it. And I think if you are my kind of alcoholic, you can't tolerate drinking not one drink.
Right.
One drink is like poison. So
I think to myself, I wonder if he didn't drink, if Christopher Hitchens would have been as interesting at all of his debates and stuff.
Right, yeah. Or Doug Stanhope.
Yeah.
He gets drunk. I love Stanhope, but there goes my camera again, a goddamn thing. But I don't know if he would be as funny if I'm still fuzzy.
No, there you go.
Oh,
you're good.
I'm back in all my glaring oldness.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, pretty cool. So I don't know, AA is a tool, that's available to there are misunderstandings about AA. Have you ever had the GSO send you a memo and tell you how to run a meeting?
No.
Actually,
I think I did, but I didn't open it.
Oh, really?
I was chairing the Prairie St. John is the rehab in Fargo, or it's one of them, and that's one I went to. And when I got out, they had a Tuesday night meeting for the alumni, and the patients went to that. So I was going to that when I was a patient there. And then when I got out, that was the only meeting I went to religiously, no matter what. And the guy, when he eventually left to move somewhere, he kind of passed the torch to me, and I liked it because the introduction is, we're not an AA meeting. And that's the one I told you about in the email, how over time, like, more alumni would come to it, which was cool. But, they incorporated the 12 steps more. And I guess I just wanted it to be more of a support kind of group, and not, I didn't want it to be structured kind of at all. But I mentioned how, like, I didn't want to, like, if the meeting is going in a way that's going to help people, I don't care if it's what I want or not. So,
right.
I mean,
did they delist you?
No. I kind of stopped going. I pass the torch to somebody else, and it still goes. But that was a meeting where the one of the employees at Prairie St. John's went to like supervise because the patients are there and it's inpatient. And
Right.
I remember talking about philosophy one day with somebody, and the guy who worked there, he looked at me and he said, you know, you're going to philosophize yourself right back into drinking. And I kind of realized, I was like, okay, well, just because you're not that smart, don't assume I am. Like,
Right.
it's kind of an arrogant thought to have, but that's what I thought. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, but he was associated with the treatment center, not with AA, with GSO.
right. This was nothing associated with A at all. But eventually, some of the alumni wanted to say, okay, so it's the third month of the year. We'll talk about step 3 today or something like that. And,
Yeah.
you know, I was fine with that because eventually what we did was we would have 3 topics. Like grief was one of my favorite topics to discuss.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so that's pretty timely for me, to tell you the truth. The thing about the thing about there's a COVID. Hang on a second. The thing about AA is that it's available, freely available to everybody all over the place. I wish there was something else, but there isn't. So to tell people that, you know, that they shouldn't go to AA is sort of a disservice to us drunks. Yeah.
Oh no. So I don't know if that was a question or not. When somebody when somebody comes to me and they're like, I'm having this problem and this issue with substances, the first thing I'm going to tell them is they should go to a meeting, because I recognize that, you know, like you said, 80% of the country does believe in a higher power. So if you already have that there, then it's a great tool to have. And the community is what gets people sober, I think. Not necessarily the steps, but the steps can help too. So I guess you kind of made me realize that maybe I guess my gripe isn't necessarily with AA, but the fact that our country is so damn religious.
Yeah, and I'm an anti-theist. I think theism needs to go the hell away. So
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I'm a little more militant than some. I'm a hard atheist, a strict naturalist, and an anti-theist. Where I actually think religion does us a disservice, because what we really need to get to is neuroscience and psychology. We need to understand what we are as organisms, and we're smart enough to get that. A dog is never going to figure out that he's a biological organism and develop, you know, cures for ills, you know, for dogs. But we can, you know, we have that ability. But believing in all these goddamn mythical sheep stories from 2,000 years ago is getting in our way. We're not able to freely apply neuroscience and psychology to what ails us. I think that's why I'm an anti-theist. So
yeah, I always tell people, if you want to keep your God belief and stay sober, join Islam, because you know. You know.
Yeah, but you know, the thing is, I don't know if it's still the case, but churches used to always leave their doors open. And when I ran away from home when I was in the 7th grade, we went to a church in Duluth, and we were freezing to death, and we tried the door, and we ended up finding shelter in the church. So if I need shelter, I have no problem going into a religious organization and sitting with them and praying with them, or doing whatever ritual they want me to do in order to gain shelter from the storm. So, I mean, I'm centered enough in my own beliefs in atheism that I don't mind going along with religious rituals, like saying the Lord's Prayer at the end of a meeting or whatever. So it's just that, you know, the whole time I'm there thinking, come on, people, wake the fuck up.
But for me, the Lord's Prayer, it used to give me PTSD when I would first go.
Really? But, shit, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I remember thinking like, God, I should complain, but also like, I'm kind of, I don't know what the philosophical term is, but I didn't want to ruin everybody else's experience just because, like, if the Lord's Prayer helps 10 people, I don't want to stop that just because of me. But But eventually I got over my PTSD with it. So, I mean, it kind of helped me in that sense.
I don't know. I've gotten to meetings where I've spoken. It's happened twice significantly, where people will come up to me after and say, "Oh my God, you really restored my faith in God," and I'm like, "I'm an atheist." And I just had to teach you about acceptance and God's will and all that stuff. And I'm an atheist, right? It's just a matter of like religion. Religion did not develop out of some accident or some stupid idea. It developed out of this essential thing that all humans have, which I call spirituality, which is this core feeling of being in your body, in your now, that sort of thing. So, I mean, there's this state of being that feels spiritual. And we feel a little bit sometimes on Christmas, even as atheists, when we're with family, we smell the pine tree and, we're feeling that sort of warm, sort of earthy connection to other people and to ourselves. That is spirituality. And that is something we're seeking. That is just a natural state of being a mammal. Like that dog right now, probably spiritually perfect in his head. That's all he gives a shit about is, being alive in the now and smelling dinner, and like he's like a monk, we should worship these guys. And our as basically smart apes, we tend to use our mind to destroy ourselves sometimes.
Absolutely.
And basically Buddhism is just learning how not to do that. So I don't know.
I was just going to say what I told you about that the counselor said how I'm going to philosophize myself back into drinking. I can't say he's wrong because I'm sure a lot of people come to the conclusion, there's no meaning in anything and I might as well, because your mind can go in any direction.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, dude. Well, we've got an hour and a half. Probably shut this down, go backstage. Maybe we'll talk a little bit backstage about the possibility of a secular meeting online. I don't know.
Totally.
And some of these guys like Ginger might join us. Let's see, what else do I have to say to the public? I'm going to be on Sal Cordova's channel talking about quantum mechanics tonight with Immutable Destiny and Leophilius. And anyway, other than that, goodbye, guys, out in the public sphere. I'm going to end the broadcast.
Thanks for having me.